Hey everyone, welcome back to Alf's Mustang Garage. Today's video is all about a rear main seal. However, we're going to do a 6-cylinder 200. And if you've looked for a rear main seal for a 6-cylinder Ford recently, you will figure out that you cannot find these. Felpro used to make them, they no longer make them. So I'm going to show you right out of the gate where you can find the rear main seals. Olson Gaskets. You have to call them, go on their website. The rear main seal is the 5341S. That is for the Ford 6-cylinders, 144, 170, and 200 seals. They are reproducing these and they're selling them like crazy because Felpro is no longer making them. So I've noticed this. A lot of people are asking, like on the Facebook groups, all the Mustang groups and whatnot that we follow. And a lot of the advice out there is to take a 289 seal and cut it down to size. That might work. But if you're not like perfect in the size, like it might not work. So I would rather not gamble and only do this once and not have to tear back into it. These seals are going to run you $55, but if the 289 seal is available and you can get that one, those ones are still going to be like $25. So for twice the price, you can get the correct gasket and do your repair. So with that out of the way and that being said, let's dive into this 6-cylinder 200 on this awesome 67 Mustang Coupe, and we'll show you how to do the repair. Okay, before we get going into this, if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to the channel, please do so. It does help our channel grow, helps our business grow, helps support us. Those little things kind of go a long ways, and if you want to follow us along, just subscribe, like the video, all the usual YouTube stuff. So, but anyways, let's get right started. Obviously, the first step is to drain your oil pan. I hope I don't have to mention that to most people, but we're starting this job start to finish. So okay, so we're working on a 6-cylinder 200 cubic inch. Obviously we have to remove the pan to access the rear main seal. In order to do that, this sway bar doesn't have to come out, but you do have to lower it down so you can provide enough clearance to sneak the oil pan out. Okay, once your sway bar is loose and movable so you can work around it, or if you choose to remove your entire sway bar, that's fine. You gotta remove your support brace right here. You got a couple of 7/8 bolts, one on each frame rail. Now, if you watch my YouTube friend, Andy Cruz, you really wanna be careful with these bolts because he was doing his on his fastback Mustang, and he ended up breaking one of the bolts off, and I think one of them was just kind of spinning on him. Anyways, he had to cut into the frame rail to actually repair the threads on that. So something like this, you kind of want to be careful with. This is why I like to remove stuff by hand, because if you just jump right into it with impacts, these tend to get pretty rusty, and you never know how they're going to come out. If it feels like it's just not coming, it might be a good idea to put some heat on this, so you don't end up breaking that. So, not that Andy, did anything wrong or anything. It's just sometimes they'll get you. I'm always nervous when it removes bolts, and this kind of goes for like any kind of bolt. any kind of bolt on these old cars. If they haven't been removed in years, you just never really know. So always pay attention to what you're doing. I like to use hand tools when removing stuff. Luckily with this one, looks like it came right up. Okay, now we have the front sway bar down, our support bar down. We can go ahead and remove oil pan bolts. And then we have our torque converter inspection cover. We're going to remove that as well. Okay, so obviously you kind of want to be careful in this process. You don't want to like distort your oil pan or anything like that. But it's hard to find a place to get into. And that seemed to do the trick. So what I use is just kind of like a long, I have like this long trim tool, and I just kind of went over the top here, just kind of right in the corner, and was able to break that seal free. Okay. Still gotta take this little inspection cover off here. Gives me a little bit more room to work with. Peel off your old gasket, unless you're lucky enough to have it stick on the oil pan. So what we have now is your rear main bearing cap. So we are going to remove that and remove the bearing cap to access the seal. 3/4 socket on these bearing caps. Sometimes you can gently just kind of mop that with a rubber mallet. Just like that. Here's where it might get a little tricky depending on what scenario you're in. But there's two types of rear main seals. There's a rope seal, and then there's like the actual hardened, you know, two-piece seal, which is like your replacement options. Looks like we have a replacement hard seal. So the seal should be staggered. If you can see on camera, part of it on this side is already sticking out, and part of it on this side is already recessed up in there. That is how it's supposed to be. And what we have to do is try to drive it up and around. So you need a small punch. You want to be very careful not to score or damage the crank journal here. And we're going to use my rubber mallet to try to break this seal free. Usually it takes a little bit of effort to get it going, but once you get it moving, it usually kind of drives itself right around. as it starts to get a little more exposed, you might have some luck in grabbing it with some pliers and kind of rolling it around the rest of the way. There's the upper seal. It's like we looked at on this one. I think we got the whole thing. Sometimes with the rope seals, you know, sometimes they come out in pieces. I think Andy Cruz has some pretty good, I think he has a couple of videos on this actually. His second video is much better. You can tell he gets, you know, better and better with every video that he makes. But I think it's the second one where he has like a rope seal and it kind of comes out in like maybe 2 pieces or something like that. I might have to rewatch that. But so you might encounter that, or you might encounter one of these. So this one kind of came out in one piece and looks like she's pretty clean. So let's move over to the actual bearing cap piece. And then one more thing to kind of note, I want to stress like how important it is to be careful when you're like hammering that dowel to get that seal to start working around, because you know if you damage or score your crank journal, you're gonna have a tough time with your new seal and getting it to seal up. So like when I put my dowel pin in there, I'm going like all the way over as far as I can on the block side. You know, I'm trying to stay away from the journal. I'm trying to stay over here with my dowel as I kind of work that around. So, okay, so when removing the rear main seal, I talk about how there's 2 different types. There's like the molded hardened seal, which is like the one you're going to want to put in, obviously. But there's also the rope seal. So the one we took out was the molded hardened seal, but it just so happens I have the opportunity. I have 2 of these that I'm doing at the same time. So I have this like super cool 65 Mustang here that we're working on as well with an inline 6, and it has the rope seal in there. And so I'm going to take that opportunity to show you how to remove the rope seal if you happen to come across one. So here's the one that we pulled out of the main cap, and it's just like a flexible piece of rope, but it's not gonna like, you're not gonna be able to like put a punch on it and drive it around the crankshaft like how you can with the molded seal. What we're gonna end up probably doing is running like a little screw through the bottom of it like this and kind of grabbing some threads and trying to pull it out, and maybe, you know, rotating the engine over at the same time. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, so just like doing the molded seal, you want to just like stay away from the crankshaft the best you can. So that screw seems to be going in fairly well. Okay, so now that I have my screw in here like a fairly good amount, it's got a few threads on it, I'm gonna have an assistant rotate my engine counterclockwise for me. Since I'm on this side, I'm gonna try and pull it out as he's rotating the engine, and I'm going to use a pair of needle nose pliers on the head of this screw to kind of pull as he's rotating the engine. We're going to see how this works. So far, nothing. Oh, a little bit of movement. There's a little bit. Ow. Okay, so as you can see, it's not going to be easy. It's just kind of like falling apart. So Andy Cruz did one of these on one of his 289s, and he had the rope seal, and he actually didn't even film it because he said he was cussing too much. So, but we're gonna keep trying it with this and see what we can make happen. Second attempt to grab some threads. This might be a several attempt kind of process to do this. Okay, we're up in there, and again I have my assistant kind of rotating the engine. Hopefully that kind of helps. See, it's kind of coming a little bit. You can't pull too much because it just kind of, see, if it was coming and then all of a sudden you just lose it. Yeah, this is going to be several times before we get this sucker out of here. So we'll just keep at it. Okay, going back in with the screw. Okay, here we go. Ooh, that time it seems like it gets a little bit more out every time I do this. So we're just gonna keep rolling our screw in there, because at least as long as we're getting more and more material out, we'll have more of this seal to kind of bite into. And I definitely think having an assistant kind of rolling that engine for you is definitely very helpful, because I can't pull on it all that much. Oh, little by little, this is just what you gotta do. Okay, Christian, go ahead and rotate her. Oh, look at this. Oh, keep going, buddy. Dude. Oh, like there's so much of it hanging out now. I might be able to just pull it with my fingers. Go ahead, Christian. Look at that. There she is. Look at that. Woo! That is a rope seal. We might have lucked out with this one. I know they're probably not that easy, but at least I was able to kind of be in a position where I could show you how to remove either or. So, because I don't think you see too many rope seals anymore. It's just kind of like an old design, and they're being replaced with the molded seals. So anyways, that's how you do both. Okay, and then because the other car, the pin was already driven out, there's that little set pin. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a good image of it from the backside. But that set pin is designed to keep the rope seal, it keeps the rope seal in place, and it won't, like, you know, move around on you. So, but it doesn't work with the molded seal. You can see you got to drive that out. So, okay, luckily this piece is a lot easier to work with. You know, a lot of times you can just kind of get your, you know, dikes and just pop that seal right out, just like that. Old seals, looks like they're pretty old, and so that would explain why this sucker is leaking the way that it is. Okay, so a couple things to talk about prepping for your new rear main seal. You need to check your bearing cap. Okay, there is a little hole right there where a used to be like a little set pin that would poke through for the original rope seals to keep the rope seal in place. Okay, so you need to kind of make sure that that is punched out, because maybe the person who did this before you, maybe they didn't know about that, and maybe they stuck in their new hardened seal in there and damaged their new hardened seal. You don't really know. Or if you removed a rope seal, more than likely you still have that set pin that is in place. So the other thing in prepping for your seal is you need to make sure that when you install your new one, you have this little offset going on here, which is kind of what we saw when we removed this, was the offset. So, and the other thing is just to correctly install your seal. Right now, which we're having a very hard time getting or finding rear main seals because Fel-Pro has, at least temporarily, discontinued the production of these seals. So I've been getting these from Olson's Gaskets. So I'll cover this again in case you skipped over it. But there's their website, there's their phone number, and this is the part number for the seal. They're making this exact reproduction of the original Fel-Pro seal. And this is, for your 60 to 83 6-cylinder Fords, 144, 170, 200s. So they are probably double the price, but it is the correct seal. So I would much rather, pay $55 for the right seal than, $25 for a 289 seal and try to cut it to size, which is what a lot of people are recommending on Facebook groups and forums right now because you can't find the seal. Well, here's the seal. Get it from these guys, spend the money, get the right seal. You might get the 289 seal to work if you cut it perfectly, but you're kind of gambling there. For 25 bucks more, you can get the right seal. So the lip of that seal needs to go towards the front of the engine. So what we mean by that is there is the picture diagram. I have one of these old repair books. That seal needs to go towards the front of the engine. Okay, so when you're looking at your new seal, you can kind of see this little lip. Okay, so that needs to go in exactly like this. Okay, that seal goes towards the front of the engine. Okay, so of course I probably shouldn't have to say this, but you want to make sure that this is all nice and cleaned and prepped and ready for a new seal. So here we go. This little groove, which is that lip towards the front of the engine, right? So it's not going to go this way, it's going to go this way, okay, because the front of the engine is this way. So very easy to get that wrong there. So we're going to put that in like so. I usually keep these little handy measuring paper tape measures that I get from carburetor rebuild kits. And so we're looking for 3/8 of an inch. So there's about what 3/8 of an inch looks like when you're setting this up properly. Okay, and then when you're setting up this on the crankshaft side, you need to make sure that this is kind of equal, and this side of the crankshaft is recessed to accommodate that, and that way right when you bolt this up, this is doesn't have that connection right at where this mates up to the block, and that's going to allow for a better seal. So and again, the lip of this seal, so the end that gets that groove is going to go towards the front of the engine. I can't express that enough. You definitely don't want to make a silly mistake like that. Now that we have this, we're going to go work the upper piece around the top of the crank. Back on the crankshaft side, here's our cap. We have the excess going to be on this side. So we're going to drive our seal in from this side and then leave about 3/8 of an inch sticking out. That way it goes into here, which is already ready about 3/8 of an inch down, ready to accommodate the excess seal. So again, lip, or if you can see it better as a groove, make sure that's going towards the front of the engine. In order to assist us, we don't want this seal to be dry, so we're gonna just soak it in a little bit of engine oil. That way it just kind of loops right around and doesn't damage the seal as you're looping it around. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of pressure right here as I'm pushing on the seal to help guide it around. And this is actually going, so far it's going with ease, which is what we want. So as I get closer here, I'm going to get my measuring tape back out and measure how much is sticking out. Okay, so the last car I was installing the seal on, I did a really poor job on the filming process. So luckily, because I have this other car, I'm gonna redo this and just show you how I install this here on the crankshaft. So first thing I do is I soak this in oil so it's all nice and lubed up. Otherwise, when you rotate it around the crankshaft, you're probably gonna end up cutting it or something, so we need to kind of lube this up. Okay, so with this all nice and lubed, pay attention to the lip, kind of go towards the front of the engine. And all I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of pressure right here, and then over here with my hand, I'm just kind of rotating it around. So, very hard to do and not getting in the way with all the lighting. So we're just kind of rotating that around. Putting the pressure up here, like towards the crank, definitely helps. But it shouldn't have a whole lot of resistance to it. And then make sure you leave that 3/8 of an inch sticking out. You can get your measuring tape, measure that up. So 3/8 of an inch, that's the magic number. Okay, and that's how you install the upper seal. Okay, there's 3/8 of an inch right there. That's where we want to be. Before I put in my new seal on my lower bearing cap, I'm going to put just a little daub of ultra black RTV sealant just on the ends. You just want to put a daub on this end and a daub on this end. You can do it on the cap side before you bolt it on, is what I like to do. And the seal up into place, I did oil the seal on the bottom as well, so she should be good to go. So we're just going to go nice and easy. So what you don't see me doing is I'm just kind of watching each side of that seal as I put it up into place. Make sure it's going in correctly. Okay, there we go. Now we just need to torque our main caps. Don't forget to torque your main caps back. Torque on these, according to the book, is 60 to 70 foot-pounds. So we're gonna go right in the middle. That's 65 is what I like to do. Okay, before we actually bolt the pan back on, you got these front and rear rubber seals that we're just going to put in here like this. So that's the front one, and you just got to do the same thing for the rear. Oh, one more thing before we put the pan on. I actually like to stick the cork Velcro gaskets on the block first, because they have little tabs that go underneath these rubber pieces. So I prepped them over on the oil pan, but we're gonna take those gaskets, stick them on the engine block, and then bolt the pan up and in. Okay, got our oil pan back on. Definitely nice to have some extra help there for you. If you want the torque specs on these bolts, there are smaller bolts all around, and then the very two front and the very two in the rear are going to be larger bolts. The smaller bolt torque is going to be 7 to 9 foot-pounds, and the 4 larger bolts are going to be 9 to 11 foot-pounds. When I bolt this on and torque it on, I try to pay close attention to your gasket. It's very easy to over torque these bolts. And what will happen is the gasket actually starts to kind of push out from the pan. And if you're getting to that point, you are too tight. Because I don't really care if you're still not at 7 foot-pounds. If your gasket is being pushed out, then that's not good. So you need to kind of pay attention. Take that torque spec with a grain of salt, because those torque specs were created back when these cars were new, and I'm sure the gaskets that they made were very different, so it kind of affects things. So you gotta just kind of pay attention, use your best judgment, and you just kind of slowly work around it. If you saw it in the time-lapse portion, I was just kind of going around and around several times until she's nice and evenly torqued and the gasket's not splitting out, and then you should be good. So we'll let this sit overnight, allow that silicone to kind of cure up, and then we'll get some oil in it. In the meantime, of course, you gotta put your sway bar back on and support brace back on. We'll put some oil in it and see how she does. Okay, it's the next morning. We're back on the ground. We got our oil back in our engine, and now we can just get it started up and see if we're leaking. Okay, well, looks like she's good for now. What we'll end up doing is just warming this up, going for a drive, double checking everything and making sure she's good. Before it was like coming out like a steady stream of oil, so I mean it'll be pretty obvious if it's fixed or not. So of course we're gonna get her good and hot and go drive it and come on back and make sure everything's good like that. But anyways, I hope that is helpful. I hope that helps people find like the correct rear main seals for you, and then you can kind of see how to do it. But anyways, if you found this video helpful and you want to support us and the channel and everything, it's really easy to do. All you gotta do is click like on the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Those little things go a long way. So anyways, appreciate you being here, appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you on the next go around.